this breakfast brunch for us for a Mother's Day. When Tiffany asked me if I would give my testimony, I said, well, I haven't any spectacular conversion in that respect. But I got thinking about it and I got praying about it. So I'm going to share my life. Before I go, I want to kind of put I grew up at Beals on an island surrounded by water. Okay, when I was growing up, we had 3 churches that was very active. The Wesleyans now, which was Reformed Baptist. Our Advent was over on the Mill Pond, the one they took down a few years ago, and the Latter-day Saint Church. So I think our community was very faith-oriented growing up, and we had one school, and this is during my time. We had one school that is down by the town office, and those trees and things, that was where our school was from 1st grade through high school. Okay, so now, this is my life. When Mama was carrying me as a baby, it was during the Depression, which was in 1940, about 5 years before World War II ended. And at that time, I don't know if they was given stamps or what, but they would get so much they could go get butter, so much food, extra food. So I don't think they had as lot of good food that they had now, but they survived. So when I was born, January the 7th, 1940, I weighed 5 pounds and 14 ounces. And I was blessed to be born into, I guess a privilege, to be born into a Christian family with Christian parents. I was going to say just a minute before that, my daughter is here, my daughter-in-law by love is here, my granddaughter and my great-granddaughter, and my sister, so that's quite special. So anyway, I don't remember ever not going to church growing up, and we lived over in Barney Cove. Well, most people know where we lived, and we had to walk, or we went over to Mill Pond, and we went on Sunday twice a day. On Wednesdays we went, and so I mean that was something we always did growing up. We never questioned. We had Sunday school and we had other programs, and in our church family we had probably services. Well, they called them revival services, probably once a year or so. And, excuse me, and it wasn't a day or two, it would probably be a week or 10 days, something like that. And during one of our things, my mom, she sang in the choir. And I was probably 10 years old, and I was down front, over by the church. Also, it was Midnight Church, over where the piano side was. And some people had gone to the altar, to accept the Lord. And Mom, I was standing there, and she said, would you want to? And I said, yes. And when I accepted the Lord, I said, what a peace came in my head. It's an experience you can't explain. For me, that's how I felt. And then I was telling Janine, I couldn't remember about being baptized. And she said, well, she was stubborn. At that time, there was quite a few young people that was being baptized, and she said, you must have probably was there. And I opened my baby book the other day, and Mom had a picture of me, and I was 14. So I was 14 when I was baptized. But as I was growing up, because Mama named me Leona Lillian Alley. And I used to think, if I could find someone with an L, and I could be the three L's. And at that time, Clint lived in Alice Bay, and they did have also 2 little churches. Our church and another church went with the Wesleyans. And the people at that time, too, I'll backtrack just a second. At that time, people would go to church over there in the morning. And then our church anyway, on the Adventist, they'd come over Sunday night with us. And sometimes we'd have a bigger crowd Sunday night than we did even Sunday morning. And our minister would go. He'd go over there and have a service in the morning, probably 10 o'clock when we was having Sunday school. And then he would come over to our church at 11, then they'd come over in the evening. And so at that time, Clint, he used to go to Sunday school, and I think he went. But anyway, when we had that big revival in our big church, when Larry Ross and the Lord, I don't know, there was a lot of people saved in that. During that time, Clint was saved. So then we started dating, and he was, and we was married. Something else I was going to tell you too. As I lived in the island, we had no bridge. We had no bridge kids on our island, and we used to go in a small boat, smaller than all your dad's boats. It was a ferry. It would be stay at Beals, but I think there was 3 landing spots in Jonesport. And what they would do, someone would call. They would call down to it was Uriah Beale when I grew up, and they would call him or call the house, and they had lights on the house. And she would put different color lights for where the boat would go. And then when I was growing up, they had just one truck. That's all we had on there, was one vehicle. And we used to go over the 4th of July over to Alice Bay. They'd take the families, they would go down there and he'd pick them up, take them over, and we'd have picnic and play games and things over in the back field. You used to be able to do that. So then, when Mom and Dad ended up with a store, I don't remember just how old we were, before I was married. And he had a truck. And they brought this truck over they called a smack, on those flat, on one of the boats. And we had a truck over there. So we afterwards had one. So, anyway, after Clint and I was married, before we was married, evidently the Beals people decided they wanted to get a bridge. So in order to buy them, and Mama was she did a lot for that. And not before they could get the bridge, they built called the car ferry. And I don't know how many cars, 3, 4 cars it probably would hold. And it would land over by where our bridge is, right over in there. They'd go from there right across. That's how that one went. So they would go on certain times, I think. I think the bridge went, I don't know just how it was, but Clint's brother helped build that. Franklin helped build that boat, over to Alice Bay, over there. But anyway, when Clint and I was married, we had a bridge. They had just got our first bridge, and they dedicated it on the 8th, I think the 8th of August, and we were married the 15th. So I think that Clint and I might have been the first married couple to be married on Beals and to go over when it was legally done. But anyway, when we were married, we tried to. We went to church. We did parts in the church. I taught Sunday school and helped, and Clinton was a deacon, and we supported the church. But we had our family, and we took them to church. And we tried to raise them to know the Lord, because that's something I think that has come right up through from, I remember my grandmother, my mother's mother. I used to go to church with her, and when I was quite small. I don't know if Janine remembers too much of Granny Lizzie or not, because I'm a little bit older than that, Janine. But I was thinking of all of the right up through the Christianity that has come and has been exposed to us, and we try to expose to our family, and we have family that is able to go with us. to be with us, and the Lord has been so good to us, and it's something that, well, I probably just take for granted, but I said I grew up not knowing, always went to church. It was just part of life, and that's how it is. And I thank the Lord for what He's done for us, what He's meant to us. He's been with us through the thin and the, and as I was talking to Colleen last night, my youngest daughter lives in Florida. And I told her, and she said, well, tell me, Mom, what you're going to say. I said, well, I'll give my life, I guess. So we talked about it. In fact, we talked an hour, never talked long. But it was an experience that has come right up through. And I hope that you young people will appreciate your parents and your grandparents, and that you will be able to keep your faith going. And she said, Mom, you've lived in the same house. I moved across the street from where I was born. I was born in one house and across the street. And the only place I've lived different is I would go to Florida, and we lived there 2 or 3, 4 months. But anyway, when we first went to Florida, I was thinking this morning, when Clint and I first went to Florida, my brother, our brother was living, and we used to go around some of the churches in that area. And then we found out that one of our former pastors was over in Sethna, and that was Gary Havener. And so we went, what, Janine, a couple of years? 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years.
And went 2 or 3 years, we'd go over Sunday morning and be with them. So, God is good. And I just thank Him for the privilege of being raised with Christian parents, and they, before them, it was spread to them too. So God is good, and so I guess that's my testimony.